Who are the top international NBA prospects going forward? After the success of Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, and many others, NBA teams are looking for the next great international superstar, maybe even international role player. Stay tuned to find out who the next international prospects your favorite team may be selecting in the near future. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. And shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. I am at home this week. No traveling for me. I'm just sitting here focusing on content for the 2023 NBA Draft. And my guest today, this is the second time on the show, but the second of many, Xavier Van Leirop, reporting to you live from Amsterdam.
Yes,
What's up,
sir.
X?
Yes, sir. What's up? What's up? Good to be back.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you on. The first show was a success. So had to definitely bring you back on for, like I said, the second of many. All right, but let's just get right into this episode. The international prospects are, it's one of those things that every year people are wanting to know who's the next international prospect. Not every year there's going to be a Luka, there won't be a Giannis, and definitely with like more scouting and more eyes all over Europe, it's probably impossible to find another Giannis that literally just comes out of nowhere and becomes an MVP. But with such focus on the international game, teams have expanded their international scouting team. You know, we go to different tournaments in Europe and you see NBA scouts all over the place. Who are the next group of guys that you believe are the international prospects that we will see one day on an NBA roster? Not necessarily guys. I mean, maybe it can be guys that you think that could get drafted, but I'm talking about guys that you think could come in as a rookie or whenever their buyout situation may be clear, that can come in and play a significant role on the NBA team. Who is your first prospect outside of Victor Wembanyama? We know he's that dude. I was in Vegas last week watching him.
Yeah.
Who's next for you?
Well, if you're talking about the game that you were at, you had Sissoko, you had Wembanyama, but you had one guy who really impressed me, and that's Mojave King.
Yeah, he played well. He played well the second game.
I don't know if I pronounce his name right, Mojave,
like the
King?
Mojave Desert here. Yeah, he played well the second game. I think he was like their leading scorer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
had a big highlight dunk right in front of me, like a tip dunk. So yeah, that's a name that I felt like he had such a buzz maybe like 2 years ago, and then it seems to like die down. For the audience that is not familiar with this game, let them know about Mojave King.
Well, he's actually he's really athletic. He's athletic. He's big. I don't know. He's like 6'7", 6'6". Actually, for me, this was the first game I saw in a long time against the Metropolitans. But I heard of him when he was at the NBA Academy. Watched one or two couple of games, then he disappeared a little bit. I don't know where he went right out of my head. I think 36ers in the NBL.
Canes, but I think Canes. I think CAINS or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with him, but he impressed me the second game, man. Scoot was out. He filled his place perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I thought like
that's
for
what
him,
I think. He grabbed his chance, man.
Yeah, he couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. Of course, he wasn't the guy that everybody was tuning in to watch. And it was unfortunate for the people that really wanted to see Scoot versus Victor Part 2 after such a impressive first game that Scoot went out very early, bumping knees, but then Mojave came in, and I honestly don't remember him in the first game. I mean, I don't know if he didn't get in or I was just so caught up in the spectacle, the shootout between the two guys. But the second game, he I mean, like, what better situation for him? He goes in, had some athletic plays, filled up the stat sheet, just did a little bit
Yep.
of everything on the biggest stage for him. So I think that he definitely put himself in
Yeah.
consideration because he was, in my opinion, the forgotten
Yep.
prospect from the Ignite class.
Reminded me a little bit of Josh Green. I don't know.
But I live in Dallas.
Huh?
Josh Green
Yeah.
is a name Mavs fans. I forgot. I can't. I think he went ahead of Tyrese Maxey, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's always going to be
Yeah.
a sore spot for Dallas fans,
Yeah.
especially when Tyrese is from Dallas.
Yeah.
But but yeah, but Josh Green was super hyped. I think Mojave has a little bit more game than Josh Green. I
Yeah.
felt like Josh didn't have any pace. I mean, he just had the size and he had the athleticism. And you thought that, okay, maybe if the shooting comes along, he'll be able to come in and
Yeah.
contribute right away. I mean, he's still young. He still has plenty
Josh
of
Green was
time.
more is more businessman. In my eyes, Mojave King has a little bit more creativity.
Yeah. I like that.
More imagination. Yeah.
So do you think that Mojave put himself in position to be a second round pick, or do you think he can possibly go even higher?
Difficult. It depends also in how much games Scoot will play, of course, and of course, Sissoko is on his position also. So he has a lot of players or really good talent above him. But well, if one player gets out and he grabs his chance, who might know?
Yeah.
I have a feeling like the G League invest more. Correct me if I'm wrong. More time and energy in Scoot and get Scoot on the radar. Get CD Sissoko on the radar because he played a lot. He played a lot.
Yeah, and another thing that I felt like was kind of underrated in that whole situation is that Ignite team probably only practiced 3 or 4 times, if that. They had just got to Vegas, maybe at the most 2 weeks to 10 days before that. So they, were kind of filling each other out, and don't even know if he really had a fair camp to establish himself as a role player. So
yeah, and they will play what 52 games now.
Yeah, they're going to play a full season, so he'll have time.
A lot of chances. A lot of chances.
Yep. So after Mojave King, who is from Australia, which Australia has been producing talent. I'm not the biggest Ben Simmons guy, but you have to, factor him in as he's the number one pick. He's been an all-star. You got Josh Giddey. Yeah. They have produced some talent. I mean, Josh Green, and then you got Dyson Daniels. So there's something in the water in Australia as far as producing talent. Now, the only thing is I guess Josh and Mojave are kind of like the exceptions in a sense, but when I think of Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, and Ben Simmons, they're like these oversized ball handlers and playmakers. So it's kind of like it seems like their development is like positionless in Australia. Like if you're 6'9", 6'10", they're not saying, hey, you're just going on the block. You're developing a well-rounded skill set. So I love what they're doing out there. So after Mojave, who is the next prospect that you think is not only an NBA player, but a guy that can come in and eventually be a rotation player for an NBA team?
Well, I was in Europe. You also have like one team, a German team that invests a lot of time and energy in young prospects. I'm talking about I watched last week, and yeah, Feder Zukic and Juan Nunez in one team, and it's just it's just beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see. You have like on the guard position, you have Juan Nunez, a magician on the rock. With the rock, he's passing in between legs, behind the backs. It's just amazing to see the creativity. And Feder Sukic, man, he's now one of the main guys.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought he was going to be last season. I thought he was already going to be the main guys, but now he's putting his mark on the team, shooting open jumpers, running over screens, contesting jumpers, open jumpers, creating for himself, driving hard to the hoop. His athleticism in Europe is also, you can see that his athleticism is a little bit more than the the other European talents. A little higher, a little better, stronger.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
I watched some. I watched a lot of film with him last year. I did not get a chance to see him live. I talked to like his agency a few times to try to schedule like some interviews, but wasn't able to happen. One of the things that I like about him is that he has a defined NBA role as a shooter.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you know what you're going to get from him. He's a good shooter from deep. I think that his passing is a little bit underrated. I think he's a good ball mover. Maybe not like a creator, but he is a good ball mover. He knows how to, just make plays. He has a good feel for the game,
yeah.
and I think
Can
he
switch every
has,
position.
yeah, and he
Can switch
shows
every
that he can make
position.
some plays for himself on occasion. Don't know if that's going to
Mm-hmm.
translate on the next level, but I mean, he plays hard every
Yeah.
play. He plays
Uh,
hard. He
experience.
hustles.
He has experience with pro players, with the men's and with the national team men's and with in the BBL. So playing double competition, Euro Cup and BBL. So
And they had a big
uh,
win. I think they beat a team from Italy, right?
yeah, yeah,
A team from Italy
yeah.
a couple of days ago. All right, when we return, I want to talk more about Juan Nunez. Juan is if Wembayama is your most exciting international player, then Juan Nunez has to be second. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just fun to watch. All right, when we return,
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about a little bit more about Juan, who comes from the Real Madrid system. But
Yeah.
let's talk about Bet Online. Bet Online is the number one source for your football betting info this season. You can find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, Bet Online remains your continued source for all of your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It is the fastest and the easiest way to check on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, once again, you're listening to the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. This is your host, Rafael Barlowe, with my guy, Xavier Van Leirop, reporting to you live from Amsterdam. All right, Juan Nunez. I first saw Juan play. I can't even think of when the first time I saw him play. Maybe it was at the under. Did he play the under 18s 2 years ago or something like
What
that?
in GT
Maybe it was
or
whatever it
what?
was. I was just blown
European
away
Championship.
by his confidence, his flash, his flair. Like he plays loose. He
Yep.
plays like he's having fun. And one of the things that is important when you have a player like that is you have to have the right coach that lets you be creative, that lets you be you, because it's like he's flashy, but he's like fundamentally flashy. Like, I
Yep.
mean, he'll make like a really crazy highlight pass, but at the same time, he just needs that he needs a long leash to be him.
Yep.
And I liked him a lot. Man, now it's bothering me. Where did I? Well, it was for the national team, so I
European
guess it was,
Championship. Maybe
yeah,
maybe on the 19 World Cup.
yes. So maybe that was
On
it.
the
Yeah,
19 World
and I
Cup.
mean
Yeah.
it's maybe like a lazy comparison because he's Spanish, but he kind of reminded me of like Ricky Rubio in a sense, to where like if you just look at the numbers, like you say, all right, he
Mm-hmm.
averaged 8 points a game, he shot like 38%. I'm just making up numbers here.
Yeah.
He doesn't impress you when you just look at the raw numbers, but when you watch the game, you see the
Yeah.
impact that he has and the passing and of course the flair and the flash. So I'm high on him. But do you think he is an NBA prospect or legitimate NBA player? Or do you think he's a high level European prospect? Because some people are really divided on it.
Yeah. Well, I think a high level European prospect, but this guy, how he passes the ball and also the flashes, that is NBA. That is show in
Yeah.
my eyes. So maybe one NBA team or some NBA teams will take a chance on him, but the physicality is also a problem. The pace of the game. His shot is a little bit. It's not consistent enough. But the way he's playing pick roll, because the NBA is so pick roll heavy league,
with
high
more
basketball
spacing.
IQ. Yeah, more spacing. So and how this guy can just pass behind his back, pass behind his head, no look passes, dishes, alley-oop passes. This will be a treat with bigger spacing, better players around him, more athletic players.
The set
This
shot. I
can,
just
yeah,
figured if he can just knock down the set shot and just
yeah,
be a 36, 37, 38% shooter that can, he can make the play, but then when he's off the ball, just knocks down that open three, and then maybe down the line,
yeah,
the pull-up jumper and so on. But for the
yeah. The pull
audience,
jump. Yeah,
that does not know, can you give them a little bit of insight on Like this team had Killian Hayes a few years ago, and
mm-hmm.
Zugic and Nunez are teenagers.
Yeah,
And it's not often that you see a team that's competing in a high league like the Euro Club giving two teenagers major minutes. So can you explain to the audience how significant it is that these two guys are playing a big role on a team that's playing international competition?
yeah. I think has created this really good system where they can play, or where they attract high level prospects that they give them a platform to play. For now, I mean, like Juan Nunez plays like 80 minutes at Real Madrid. He's surrounded by uh, by a lot of Sergio Yul, Rudy Fernandez, like a lot of high players. I will not necessarily say they don't play to win, but they get a lot of. For them, the wins are the youth that's playing very good. For example, Killian Hayes, they gave them when I watched those games, they gave him a lot of confidence when he made some turnovers. The coach didn't sub him out. For example, in a lot of pro teams, pro teams need to win. They need to win. That's so simple as that. In Europe, so if a youth player makes a turnover or wrong decision, you're very quick to see that they get subbed out. The coaches, I think they hire the coaches also based on this. Um, give youth the chance to play. Give them a platform to play. Give them a platform to shine. Get them on the radar. They play double competition. BBL, also the BBL is not the strongest league in Europe, but it's a good league, a strong league. You play against Bayern Munich and Alba Berlin and play against good players. But for the youth, is this very, 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 very good to develop.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you said, especially if I'm an agent. I think I may want to send my player to a team like that because, and I think we talked about it in the last episode, because in Europe, there's like this window where guys disappear from like 19 through like 22, where
Yeah,
they're stars on the youth level, then they end up going to a good team and they're, you know, outside of the rotation. And so I think this situation with is giving two really good young prospects the opportunity to showcase their talent in front of NBA scouts. And they had success as far as getting Killian Hayes drafted. Now there is some debates about how the team played better when he went down because
yeah,
he did have so many opportunities to make mistakes and play
hmm
free, which is
yeah,
still kind of rare in Europe. But I think the success of getting Killian drafted in the top 10 probably played a role in them getting a couple younger guys, and it's a team that I think is going to have quite a few young players going forward. All right, when we
yeah,
return, we'll talk about a few more prospects that X believes has NBA potential. Stay tuned. All right, once again, locked on NBA Big Board Podcast, Rafael Barlowe. We are talking with X Xavier. Well, I call him X. You may call him Xavier Van Leirop, who is an up and coming coach and scout based out of Amsterdam. One of the reasons why I wanted him to be a big part of this show is because he has a lens from a coach, and coaches see the game a little bit different than just scouts. And so with his background in coaching and working with the national team, I feel like he would be an asset to what we have going on here with NBA Big Board. All right, who is the next prospect or two that you are high on that you believe has NBA potential?
How about Miro Little? So,
But he's going to school in the States. I know
yeah, he's going to
he's
school.
from
But he's from Finland. He's from Finland. So,
going to Baylor.
yeah, he's going to Baylor, but he plays at Sunrise now. But actually, this last season was the first season I knew of him. I saw him at the AGT, Helsinki Basketball Academy. Never heard of them. And after that, he played with the men's in the Eurobasket.
Played well.
Yeah,
So
he
we were
played
at
really
that
well.
same tournament then.
Yeah,
I don't remember where it was at. I went to 4, and then they all start to blend in. So that was in Greece, Patras, right?
yeah, yeah. He showcases his talents, man. His athleticism, his burst on the dribble, pick and roll reads. Yeah. There was
So
a time that a lot of
I
scouts talked about him.
I got a story about that. So my wife she was pregnant. So at the time I was going home for like 10 days out of the month and then going back to Europe. And I had a flight from Dallas to Istanbul. And then on my flight to Dallas to Istanbul, I had like a layover. And I'm exhausted. So I'm looking for my gate. And then I see like this team, like whole team in uniform, so on and so on. And so then I looked up and I was like, okay, this is my gate. And they're on the plane to Athens. So sat down, and then I was asking, I said, are you guys playing in the ANGT? And they're like, yeah. And so they're like, we're from Helsinki, yada yada yada. So right when I'm getting ready to get on the plane, a guy who comes up to me in plain English, no accent. And he says, are you here to go to these next generation tournament? I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, he said, where are you from? I said, I'm from the States, but I live in Dallas. And he says, oh yeah, I was just in Waco a few weeks back. So I'm like, oh yeah. He says, like, yeah, I went on some visits. I went to Waco, and then I think he said he went to Indiana. So like, okay. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, Miro Little. I'm like, oh, I know who you are.
Yeah.
So we ended up talking, and he had a couple of impressive games. He had one game that was, man, I can't think of who they played, but it went to like double overtime, and he finished with like 37 points. And I mean, he hit every tough jumper, pull up jumper, got to the basket.
Yep.
And I mean, I have to look at my notes and figure out what he finished with. But he did something after the game that was one of the most impressive things that I've seen. And I actually tweeted about it. It kind of went viral in Finland. And they had lost a tough game. I forgot who they played. It may have been the next generation Patras team that was kind of had players from different parts of the and I remember 37 points. Well, maybe I'm not, but anyway, I think it was 37 points. Played a phenomenal game, went in double overtime. He hit every big shot, and then after the game was over, I mean, it was like a tough loss. It wasn't like, I mean, it's like he's representing his country in a sense. They lose the game, and after the game was over, he picked up every water bottle from behind his team bench. Picked up every water bottle, put it individually, put them in the trash. Then he put on such a show. Some of the kids were asking for autographs. He signed every single autograph. He shook hands with everybody. He told people, thank you for coming to watch him play. And it was like, on one hand, he's a competitor. So, if a guy is devastated after a loss and kicking chairs or whatever like that, some people may say he has a bad attitude. Some people may say, oh, that's his competitive fire. But for him, it just showed his character of, and I'm not saying like if you don't pick up the water bottles, you're a bad guy, but he just went above and beyond, cleaned up the bench. And it was like one of those things that stood out to me. It's like, all right, if he doesn't make it as an NBA player, he's going to impress somebody that enough to where they're going to put him on their staff as a coach or something like that. He just had this demeanor of a guy that's going to be very successful in basketball after his career is over, because his character is so high and such an impressive young man. So I know that was kind of like a long story in a sense, but tell the audience your thoughts on Little and how you think he'll play this year at Sunrise and at Baylor.
At Sunrise, I think this guy will just dominate. He will be the main guy. As European experience, USA experience, pro experience, men's experience. Um, hits tough shots. Not a lot of turnovers. High IQ. Knows how to play pick and roll. Can play two guard. Play on the point guard. Play on the shooting guard. My only concern is size a little bit. He needs to be really strong, beefy to make it to the league. How tall is he? 188, 190, 193 something. Not sure. But yeah, I think he will make the league because he has the European experience. Goes to high school. Goes to Baylor. After that, we'll get drafted probably first round.
Yeah, I thought he was a Villanova guy. He just looked like a Villanova Wright guy. Why? Because he just seemed like he didn't have the flash and flare of your typical one and done. Villanova guards are usually tough and kind of stocky, and they just have a way of playing. They play off 2 feet, and they're not like, I don't want to say they're not interested, but they're not usually your one and done type guys. I mean, they're like guys that kind of fit into a system. They stay 2 to 3 years. I mean, you look at Jalen Brunson, you look at just all the guys from Villanova, and he just seemed like a Villanova type guy. So, yeah. So when he went to Baylor, I mean, I live in Texas, so I kind of naturally root a little bit for the Texas team. So it'd be cool for him to go to Baylor. I can watch him play in person more, but I was shocked. I was actually kind of shocked that he went to Baylor.
I think he's steady, man. I think that's something Scott Drew looks for. Steady guard, not a lot of weird stuff, not a lot of flashiness, but steady on the ball. And a lot of turnovers.
And that's why I thought he was a Villanova guy. Villanova guys are steady. All right, one more prospect. Who was the last prospect that you want to discuss?
When you was in Amsterdam, we talked about this guy for a little bit, Hugo Gonzalez. And
I'm high on Hugo.
Yeah, you're high on Hugo. Yeah. So, well, why are you high on Hugo actually?
Like, I'm high on Hugo because I think he has good size. I think he's a good athlete, and he plays hard. Like, he plays like, isn't his dad like? Doesn't his dad like have a significant role at Real Madrid or something like that?
Oh, I don't know about. Then never heard of him.
Okay, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I think somebody told me his dad is like the GM. Like, again, if I'm wrong, I don't want to put some different out in the air that's not accurate. But he plays so hard. I mean, he's in the competitions I've seen, he's usually more talented than the other players on the floor. But at the same time, he mixes that by playing so hard. I mean, he plays like he's starving. Like, he's hungry to make it. Like, he needs to feed his family with his checks. Yeah, and the shooting is a question. Like, I think he's like, I wouldn't say he's a good shooter. I wouldn't even say he's a streaky shooter. I think he's kind of below streaky in a sense, but he's so aggressive where he'll make enough shots where you have to respect it. He gets to the foul line a lot. I thought I went to this under-16 tournament in Bassano, and I thought he was the best player, but he got ejected in the championship game.
What do you thought about that, the ejection? Because I was like, this guy is not. He might be trouble.
It just depends on how talented you are. I'm like, if Luka wasn't Luka and he was a role player, the way he's yelling at the refs and staring people down, people would say he's a hothead, but the talent kind of makes up for it. I mean, Hugo's not Luka by any means, but I think it's consistent with his competitiveness. Like, he plays so hard. He can pass. I think his passing is underrated. So I think for him, best case scenario is he's like this athletic wing, especially in Europe. He's very athletic for in Europe. Yeah, the athleticism won't stand out as much in the NBA, but he's athletic. He can make plays out of pick and roll. He can be a ball mover. He's a transition finisher, and defensively, he's gonna give you his all and compete. He did okay versus Team USA in this summer.
The thing, he's not scared, man. He's not scared.
He's not scared. That's what I'm saying. Like, he has this his family's dependent on it. But the concern is, and I've heard this from multiple scouts, and I'll get your opinion on this before we go. Some people feel like he's peaked, like he's already as good as he's going to be because his body's so much more mature. He's cut, he has muscles, he's been more athletic than everybody else, he's been bigger than other wings. Do you think that he's kind of peaked, or do you like? I mean, I've heard some people say there's guys on his team that are playing behind him that they think are going to be better long term. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think he's already peaked, but there's still some room to growth. Not a lot, but I mean, like his jumper, his
free throws,
his defense, his timing for rebounds. He uses his wingspans, all those things. There's still room for growth, but not physically. Maybe a little bit physically, of course, when you go to the NBA. But he will not grow a lot. He will not grow a lot more. So that's the thing for me. But maybe play more on the ball. I think his ball handling could get any better. Off the ball, off screens, space, off the ball screens. He can do that already. Shooting off screens, scoring off screens, be athletic, play above the rim. But maybe on the ball, always can use some improvement, playing some isolation. I know Real Madrid and the U, they play a lot of isolations. So be more on the ball, be more hands-on, be more of a leader, be more in the defensive rotations. I think this season he practiced with the first team, so
that's big. He'll learn there.
He played, so you saw he's not scared, man. He's not scared for anybody, not even ACB players. So
he's fearless. Well, man, thank you so much for talking about some of your top international prospects. Shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I will be back on Monday with more content. But before you move on with your weekend, please check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022. It is a 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. The local team experts and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey, they're all combining into one ultimate NBA preview. Search for the Ultimate Pro NBA Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Rafael Barlowe with my special guest, Xavier Van Leirop, talking about some international prospects that you may see in the NBA in the very near future. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we are out.